The sky of IV was burning. Orange and red flames covered the beautiful lavender clouds that the people loved so much. The gentle four-armed aliens ran through their streets, screaming and crying as bombs fell from above. Buildings that had stood for thousands of years crumbled into dust. Children called for their parents. Parents searched for their children. It was chaos. Ambassador Tellin stood in the underground command center, watching the destruction on dozens of screens. His four hands shook as he pressed them against the cold metal console. He was old, even by standards. He had seen many things in his 200 years of life, but he had never seen anything like this. The swarm had come without warning. Their insect ships darkened the sky like a plague of locusts. Millions of soldiers landed on the surface, their sharp legs clicking against the ground, their mandibles dripping with acid. They did not come to conquer. They came to feed. They were always hungry, and they were soft and easy prey. "Ambassador," a young aide said, her voice breaking with fear, "the orbital defense grid has fallen. We have no more ships. We have no more weapons. What do we do?" Tellin closed his large, compound eyes for a moment. They were not warriors. They had never been warriors. They were farmers, artists, and philosophers. They grew food that fed 100 worlds. They created music that made other species weep with joy. They believed in peace and kindness and the goodness of all living things. And now they were going to die. "Activate the emergency beacon," Tellin said quietly. "Send our call to the Galactic Accord." The aide nodded and ran to the communication station. Her four hands moved quickly over the controls. Within seconds, a powerful signal shot out into space, carrying the desperate plea of a dying world. The Galactic Accord was supposed to protect them. 20 years ago, they had signed a treaty. They would share their agricultural technology with the Accord, and in return, the Accord would defend them from any threat. It was a simple deal. A fair deal. They had kept their part of the promise. Now it was time for the Accord to keep theirs. Tellin waited. Minutes passed. Then hours. On the screens, he watched his cities burn. He watched his people die. He watched the feast on everything they had built over 10,000 years. Finally, a response came. But it was not what Tellin expected. The communication officer looked up with confusion on her face. "Ambassador, we are receiving a signal, but it is not from the Accord fleet." "What do you mean?" Tellin asked, moving closer to her station. "The signal is coming from somewhere else. The ship identification codes are not in our database." "Wait," she paused, her eyes growing wide. "I found a match. These are Terran codes. Ambassador, these are human ships." Tellin felt his blood turn cold. Humans. Every species in the galaxy knew about the humans. They came from a planet called Earth, a world so dangerous that it should have killed them 1,000 times over. Their planet had crushing gravity, extreme temperatures, deadly predators, and poisonous plants. Any other species would have died there, but the humans did not die. They survived. They adapted. They became strong. Too strong, many said. The Galactic Accord kept the humans at a distance. They were allowed to trade and travel, but they were never fully trusted. They were too aggressive, too unpredictable, too willing to fight. The other species looked at humans the way small animals look at wolves, with fear, with caution, with the knowledge that these creatures could kill them without effort. And now human ships were coming to IV. On the main screen, Tellin watched as the ships emerged from hyperspace. They were not beautiful like Accord vessels. They were ugly and covered in burn marks and welded patches. They looked like they had been through 100 battles and refused to die. There were about 50 of them, forming a protective ring around the planet. The largest ship moved forward. Its name was painted on the side in bold letters, TSV Defiance. A communication channel opened. A human female appeared on the screen. She had dark hair pulled back tightly and eyes that seemed to see everything. Her uniform was worn but clean. Behind her, Tellin could see other humans moving quickly, preparing for battle. "This is Admiral of the Terran Frontier Fleet," the human said. Her voice was calm, almost gentle. "We received your distress signal. We are here to help." Telin did not know what to say. His mind was racing with questions and fears. "Admiral, we called for the Galactic Accord. We have a treaty with them. They are supposed to protect us." The human's expression did not change, but something flickered in her eyes, something that might have been anger. "The Accord received your signal 3 hours ago. Their fleet is sitting at the neutral zone border. They have decided that helping you is too politically risky." The words hit Telin like a physical blow. The Accord had abandoned them. After everything they had given, after all the food they had grown to feed Accord worlds, they had been left to die. "Why?" Telin whispered. "Why did you come? You have no treaty with us. You owe us nothing." Admiral was quiet for a moment. When she spoke again, her voice was soft but filled with something powerful. "Because we heard you calling for help, and where we come from, that is reason enough." Telin looked at the screens showing the fleet, 300 ships against 50. The humans were outnumbered 6-1. It was suicide. It was madness. But for the first time since the invasion began, Telin felt something he had forgotten. Hope. Admiral stood on the bridge of the Defiance and studied the tactical display. Red dots filled the screen like angry fireflies. Each dot was a warship. There were 312 of them. Her own fleet showed as small blue dots. 47 ships. Some of them were held together with nothing more than hope and welding tape. Captain walked up beside her. He was a tall man with gray hair and a face that had seen too many battles. He had served with for 15 years. He trusted her completely, but even he looked worried today. "The numbers are bad," said quietly so the rest of the crew would not hear. "We are and far from any support. If we fight, we will lose ships. We will lose people." Nodded slowly. She knew the math. She had known it before she ordered the fleet to change course toward IV. Every captain in her fleet had known it too, and every single one of them had agreed to come anyway. "What about the Accord fleet?" she asked. Made a disgusted sound. "Still sitting at the border. They sent us a message telling us to withdraw. They say we are creating a diplomatic incident." A diplomatic incident. Almost laughed. Below them, millions of innocent people were being slaughtered, and the Accord was worried about diplomacy. This was why she had left the inner colonies. This was why she had joined the frontier fleet. Out here, far from the politicians and the cowards, she could actually do something good. She turned to the young woman at the communication station. Lieutenant Sara was barely 25 years old, fresh from the academy. She had requested assignment to the frontier fleet because she wanted to make a difference. Now she was about to get her wish. Lieutenant opened 2 channels, one to the surface, one to the flagship. Sara's hands moved over her controls. "Channels open, Admiral." 2 images appeared on the main screen. On the left was Ambassador Telin, his 4 arms wrapped around himself like he was trying to hold his broken world together. On the right was a hive commander. The creature was massive, with a hard black shell and mandibles that clicked together as it breathed. Its compound eyes showed no emotion. They did not feel things like other species. They only felt hunger. Addressed them both at the same time. "Ambassador Telin," she said, "I know we are not the allies you expected, but we are the allies you have. My people have a saying, when someone calls for help in the dark, you answer. You do not ask if it is convenient. You do not check if there is something to gain. You simply answer. That is what we are doing today." Telin bowed his head in gratitude. His compound eyes glistened with tears. Turned her gaze to the commander. Her voice changed. It became harder, colder. "Commander, you have 1 standard hour to withdraw your forces from space. Take your ships, take your soldiers, leave this world in peace." The commander made a sound like rocks grinding together. It was laughing. "Little human," it said, its voice buzzing through the translator. "You have 40 ships, I have 300. Your species is young and foolish. You do not understand how the galaxy works. The strong eat the weak. This is the natural order. They are weak. We are strong. They will feed the swarm, and there is nothing you can do to stop it. Did not blink, she did not look away. She simply smiled. It was not a friendly smile. It was the smile of a predator that has found its prey. You are right about one thing, she said. We are young. Humans have only been in space for 300 years. But do you know what we did before that? We spent 100,000 years fighting to survive on a world that tried to kill us every single day. We fought predators with nothing but sticks and rocks. We fought diseases that wiped out half our population. We fought each other in wars that burned entire continents. She took a step closer to the screen. We are not like the other species you have conquered. We do not surrender. We do not run. We do not accept that the strong must eat the weak. We look at the strong and we ask ourselves one question: how do we kill it? The commander stopped laughing. Something in his eyes made it pause. You have 1 hour, repeated. After that, we will show you why the galaxy calls Eartha, and I promise you, Commander, you will not enjoy the lesson. She made a cutting gesture, and Sara closed both channels. The bridge was silent. Every crew member was looking at their admiral. Some of them were scared. Some of them were excited. All of them were ready. Cleared his throat. Do you think they will withdraw? Shook her head. No, they do not understand fear. They have never met a species that could make them afraid. She turned to face her crew. But they will learn. Today, they will learn what happens when you threaten the innocent in front of humans. She raised her voice so everyone on the bridge could hear. All hands, battle stations, prepare for combat, and remember why we are here. Down on that planet, there are children hiding in shelters, praying for someone to save them. Today, we are the answer to their prayers. The crew moved with purpose. Weapon systems powered up. Shields came online. Pilots ran to their fighters. The old ships of the Terran frontier fleet prepared for war. The hour passed. They did not withdraw. And the wolves fell upon them. The battle began with fire. Admiral had divided her fleet into 3 groups. She called them wolf packs after the hunting animals of old Earth. Each pack had a job. Each pack had a target. And each pack was ready to die. The first wolf pack was led by commander aboard the destroyer Soul's Fury, was a small woman with quick hands and a quicker mind. She had grown up on a mining colony in the asteroid belt, where one wrong move meant death. She knew how to fight in tight spaces. All ships follow me into the asteroid field, she ordered. Let the bugs chase us. The Vanguard took the bait. 50 of their ships broke formation and followed the human destroyers into the dense asteroid field near IV's moon. It was a mistake. The pilots were good, but they had evolved on a flat, open world. They did not understand 3-dimensional combat. They did not know how to fight among the rocks. The human pilots did. Destroyers danced between the asteroids like fish swimming through coral. They fired, retreated, and fired again. Ships crashed into rocks. Ships crashed into each other. The pilots could not keep up with the humans' impossible maneuvers. How are they doing this? A commander screamed over their communication channel. No species can fly like this. But humans were not like other species. Earth's gravity was heavy, and humans had evolved strong bodies to survive it. They could handle forces that would crush other aliens. Where a pilot would black out, a human pilot would grin and push harder. The second wolf pack was commanded by Captain on the carrier, was an old soldier with white hair and a body covered in scars. He had been fighting since before most of his crew was born. He loved 2 things in life, his ship and his pilots. Launch all fighters, he commanded. Show these insects what human pilots can do. He opened its launch bays, and hundreds of small fighters poured out like angry hornets. Each fighter held a single pilot. Each pilot had volunteered for this mission, knowing they might not come back. Lieutenant was one of those pilots. She was 23 years old. She had joined the fleet to pay for her younger brother's education. She was afraid, but she did not let the fear stop her. Fear was just another enemy to defeat. Her fighter screamed through space, dodging weapons fire. She locked onto a bomber that was heading toward the planet's surface. If that bomber reached the ground, hundreds of would die. "Not today," whispered. She pressed the firing button. The bomber exploded in a ball of flame. But there were so many enemies. For every ship the humans destroyed, two more took its place. The pilots flew until their bodies ached. They flew until their vision blurred. They flew until they could not remember what it felt like to not be afraid. And still they fought. The third wolf pack was led by Admiral herself. The Defiance and its escorts drove straight toward the center of the fleet. It was a suicide charge. Everyone knew it. No one cared. "Target the flagship," ordered. "If we cut off the head, the body will die." The Hive commander watched the human ships coming toward him. He could not understand it. These creatures were outnumbered. They should be running away. Instead, they were attacking. "What is wrong with these humans?" he demanded. "Are they trying to die?" His officers had no answer. They had conquered dozens of species. All of them had surrendered when the odds turned against them. All of them had chosen survival over honor. But the humans would not stop coming. The Defiance took hit after hit. Fires broke out on 3 decks. The medical bay filled with wounded, but did not order a retreat. "Keep firing," she said calmly. "Keep moving forward." On the planet below, they watched the battle through their sensors. They saw the human ships burning. They saw the human fighters falling. And they saw something they had never seen before. They saw the fleet breaking apart. The commanders were panicking. They had expected an easy victory. Instead, they were fighting an enemy that refused to die. Every time they destroyed a human ship, another one appeared to take its place. Every time they thought they had won, the humans hit them from a new direction. Lieutenant's fighter took a direct hit. Her cockpit cracked. Air began to leak out. Blood floated around her in small red bubbles. She could feel her life slipping away. But she was not finished yet. Through her damaged sensors, she could see a troop carrier. It was full of soldiers heading to the surface. If it landed, thousands of would be captured and eaten. Pointed her broken fighter at the carrier's engines. She pushed the throttle forward. "This is Lieutenant," she said over the open channel. Her voice was weak but steady. "Tell my brother I love him. Tell him to study hard. Tell him his sister died doing something that mattered." She closed her eyes. "Enough," she whispered. Her fighter hit the carrier at full speed. The explosion lit up the sky like a new sun. The commander watched the destruction with growing fear. These humans were insane. They were throwing away their lives like they meant nothing. No species did this. No species could do this. For the first time in his long life, the commander felt something cold crawling up his spine. "Fear. All ships," he ordered, his voice shaking. "Retreat. Fall back to the jump point. We are leaving." The fleet turned and ran. Behind them, the battered human ships did not chase. They had won, but the cost had been terrible. 19 ships destroyed. Hundreds of lives lost. The survivors floated among the wreckage, too tired to celebrate. Admiral stood on her damaged bridge and looked at the stars. "Rest now," she said softly to the empty space where her fallen soldiers had been. "You have earned it." The fires on IV slowly died. The lavender sky, once filled with smoke and death, began to clear. For the first time in days, they could look up and see stars instead of falling bombs. But the work was not finished. Human shuttles landed on the surface carrying doctors, engineers, and supplies. The soldiers who had been fighting in space just hours ago were now digging through rubble to find survivors. They worked without rest. They worked without complaint. They worked as if every life was as important as their own. A human medic named knelt beside a wounded child. The little one had lost one of her 4 arms in the bombing. She was crying softly, calling for her mother. Said gently, wrapping the wound with careful hands, It is going to be okay. We are going to find your mother, I promise." The child looked up at her with large, wet eyes. "Are you an angel?" she asked. "My grandmother told me that angels come to help people who are suffering." Smiled sadly. "No, little one, I am just a human. We heard you needed help, so we came." Why? It was such a simple question, and yet found it hard to answer. Why had they come? Why had they risked everything for strangers they had never met? "Because," finally said, "a long time ago my people learned that the universe can be very dark and very cold. The only way to make it brighter is to help each other. When someone is hurting, you do not walk away. You stay. You help. That is what makes us human." The child did not fully understand, but she stopped crying. She let carry her to the medical tent, where other humans were working to save lives. High above the planet, Ambassador Tellen's shuttle docked with the Defiance. He had requested a meeting with Admiral. There were things he needed to say, questions he needed to ask. A young human officer led him through the ship's corridors. Tellen noticed the damage everywhere: burn marks on the walls, broken panels held together with tape, crew members with bandages on their arms and faces. The ship had nearly died saving his people. They reached a small room that served as the Admiral's office. It was not impressive. The furniture was old. The walls were covered with star maps and photographs of smiling faces. Tellen realized the photographs were of crew members who had died in battle, kept them close so she would never forget. The Admiral was sitting at her desk, holding a cup of something hot and dark. She looked tired, more tired than any person Tellen had ever seen, but she stood up when he entered and offered him a seat. "Ambassador," she said, "I am glad you are safe." Tellen sat down slowly, his 4 hands folded in his lap. "Admiral, I came to thank you, but I also came to understand. The Galactic Accord has told us that humans are dangerous. They say you are violent and unpredictable. They say you cannot be trusted. And yet you came to save us when the Accord would not. I need to know why." Was quiet for a moment. She stared into her cup like she was looking for answers in the dark liquid. "Do you know the history of my species, Ambassador?" Tellen shook his head. "For most of our existence, humans did terrible things to each other. We had wars that killed millions. We built weapons that could destroy entire cities. We treated our own people with cruelty that would shock you. The Accord is not wrong. Humans can be violent. Humans can be dangerous." She looked up at him, and her eyes were filled with something deep and complicated. "But that is not all we are. We also learn to love. We learn to protect. We learn that true strength is not about hurting others. It is about standing up for those who cannot stand up for themselves. When we finally reached the stars, we made a promise to ourselves. We would not bring our worst qualities to the galaxy. We would bring our best." Tellen felt his heart beating fast. "And saving strangers from certain death, that is your best." "Yes," his voice was firm. "We lost 19 ships today. We lost hundreds of good people. Lieutenant was 23 years old. She had dreams and hopes and a brother who is going to grow up without his sister. Every death hurts. Every death matters. But if we had not come, if we had done nothing, those deaths would have happened anyway, and millions of your people would have died with them." She set down her cup and leaned forward. "The Accord thinks we are reckless. They think we do not understand consequences, but we understand better than anyone. We know what it costs to fight. We simply believe that some things are worth the cost." Tellen was silent for a long time. He thought about his burning cities. He thought about his people hiding in shelters, praying for salvation. He thought about the human ships charging into impossible odds without hesitation. Slowly, he reached out one of his hands in the human way of greeting. "I think," he said quietly, "the galaxy has misunderstood your people. They call you because your planet is dangerous. But I see now that the name means something else. It means you have faced death so many times that you no longer fear it. And because you do not fear it, you can stand against it for others." Took his hand and shook it gently. We are not perfect, Ambassador. We make mistakes. We get angry. We do foolish things. But when we hear someone crying in the dark, we come. That is the one promise we will always keep." Telin bowed his head. "Then they would be honored to call the humans our friends, not because you are strong, because you are good." Outside the window, the stars burned bright and cold. But inside the battered ship, surrounded by tired humans and grateful, something warm was growing. Something that felt like hope. The Great Hall of the Galactic Accord was the largest room in known space. It was built to impress. Crystal walls stretched up toward a ceiling painted with the stars of 1,000 worlds. Floating platforms held representatives from every major species. Light filtered through colored glass, creating rainbows that danced across the polished floor. Today, the hall was filled with angry voices. "The humans have violated 17 treaties," shouted the representative from the consortium. He was a tall being with silver skin and 3 eyes that blinked in different directions. "They entered space without permission. They engaged in combat without Accord approval. They have made a mockery of galactic law." "They should be punished," agreed the speaker from the collective. "Sanctions, embargoes, show these that they cannot do whatever they want." The accusations went on and on. Species that had done nothing while the burned were now demanding justice against the species that had saved them. It was politics. It was fear. It was the way the galaxy had always worked. In the center of the hall, standing alone on the speaker's platform, was the human ambassador. Her name was, before she became a diplomat, she had been a soldier. She had fought in 3 wars and carried scars on her body and her soul. She was not afraid of angry politicians. She waited patiently for the shouting to stop. When the hall finally fell silent, she spoke. "Representatives of the Galactic Accord, I have listened to your complaints. You say we violated treaties. You say we acted without permission. You say we broke your laws." She paused and looked around the room. "And you are right. We did all of those things." Murmurs of surprise rippled through the hall. They had expected the human to make excuses. They had expected her to apologize. "But let me tell you what else we did." Pressed a button, and a holographic image appeared above her head. It showed children playing in streets that had been rebuilt. It showed families reunited. It showed life continuing where death had almost won. "We saved 11 million lives. We stopped a genocide. We answered a cry for help when everyone else in this room chose to do nothing." The representative slammed his hand on his podium. "The Accord had to consider the political implications. We could not simply rush into a conflict without understanding the consequences." "The consequences," repeated slowly. "Let me tell you about consequences. While you were having meetings, children were being eaten alive. While you were writing reports, cities were being burned to ash. While you were considering the political implications, an entire species was facing extinction." She stepped forward, and several representatives leaned back in their seats. "You want to know why humans are different. You want to know why the galaxy fears us. It is not because we are strong. It is because we remember what it was like to be weak. Earth is We evolved alongside predators that could kill us with one bite. We survived ice ages and volcanoes and diseases that wiped out half our population. We know what it feels like to be small and afraid and alone." Her voice grew stronger. "And because we know that feeling, we cannot ignore it in others. When they screamed for help, we heard ourselves screaming. When they prayed for salvation, we remembered all the times we had prayed too. We came because someone had to. We came because it was right. And we would do it again tomorrow." The hall was completely silent now. No one knew what to say. Then, slowly, Ambassador Telin rose from the delegation platform. His 4 hands were pressed together in the gesture of deep respect. "The formally request alliance with the Terran Federation," he announced. "We will stand with we will share our technology with them. We will call them friends and partners and family." For a moment, nothing happened. Then another platform began to move. It was the representative of the consortium, but it was not the angry politician who had spoken before. It was a young woman who had been sitting quietly in the back. "The mining guild seconds this request," she said clearly. 40 years ago, when our colonies were attacked by pirates, we called for help. The Accord sent a committee to investigate. The humans sent ships. We have not forgotten." More platforms moved. More voices spoke. The blind monks of Seven, who had been saved from a plague by human doctors. The collective, whose trade routes had been protected by human escorts. The floating cities of, who had received human aid after a natural disaster. One by one, species that had been abandoned or ignored by the Accord stood up. They did not stand with the powerful. They stood with the humans. The president of the Galactic Accord watched in shock as her coalition crumbled. "This is madness," she cried. "You cannot ally with them. They are too dangerous. They are too unpredictable." Smiled. It was the same predator's smile that Admiral had shown the commander. "Yes, we are dangerous. Yes, we are unpredictable. But we are also the only ones who came when innocents were dying. We are the only ones who chose to fight instead of hide. And now, we are not alone." She turned to face the species who had stood with humanity. "Today, we form a new alliance, not based on politics or profit, based on a simple promise. When someone cries for help, we will answer. When the darkness comes, we will bring light. When the strong prey upon the weak, we will stand in the way." She raised her voice so it echoed through the crystal hall. "We call it the Pack, and the galaxy will never be the same." Far away, on the bridge of the Defiance, Admiral watched the broadcast with her surviving crew. Lieutenant Sora was crying. Captain was pretending something was wrong with his eyes. Even the hardened veterans were struggling to keep their composure. "Well," said softly, "I guess we are not alone anymore." She looked at the photographs on her wall. Lieutenant smiled back at her, forever young, forever brave. "We did it," whispered to the picture. "We made it count." Outside the viewport, the stars burned eternal. But now, scattered among those stars, there were ships flying together. And humans. And monks and merchants and miners. All of them united by a simple belief. The universe was dark and cold. But together, they could make it brighter. On IV, a child looked up at the night sky. Her arm was still healing, but she was smiling. A human medic named stood beside her. "Which one is Earth?" the child asked. Pointed to a tiny dot of light near the horizon. "That one, it is very far away." The child nodded seriously. "I want to go there someday. I want to see where the angels come from." Laughed softly and put her hand on the child's shoulder. "It is not angels, little one. Just people. Ordinary people who decided that kindness is stronger than fear, and that is something anyone can become." The child thought about this for a moment, then she smiled. "Then I will become that too." Above them, the stars continued to shine, and somewhere in the darkness, the wolves of Earth kept watch, ready to answer the next call for help. Because that was their promise. And humans always kept their promises.